Hi, thanks for joining us on Calm Hearts, Calm Minds, an NOCS Heart podcast that allows us to make the mental health victories of everyday Ghanaians accessible, relevant, and relatable. We hope that you enjoy listening to us and learning lots, and we hope you do come back again to learn some more. Now, today's episode. Hi, Zipporah, how are you? It's good to see you again.
Hello. Yes, good to see you. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing very, very well. And thank you for joining us for this topic about how travel has an impact on our mental health. Um, just really, really exciting about experiencing new cultures and how it affects us. So today, for those who know us, Calm Hearts, Calm Minds, may find this one very interesting because it's not going to be an interview, it's going to be a discussion. So we are both going to share our experience on traveling. So I'm Ofosia Deku, I'm obviously the host for this show. And really, really happy to have met Zipporah because she's more traveled than I am. I'm doing still her thunder. I'll let her introduce herself. But I'm Ofosia. I have been to goodness, I've been to 6 countries. I know seven countries.
Oh,
But
close.
I have worked in two others aside Ghana. That was South Africa and the UK. So that's where most of my cross-cultural experience would be from. The others, which were Togo and Benin, were short, should I say, stops, and Ivory Coast. As for Burkina, it's more like when you go to Paga and cross and then come back. So I wouldn't count that as one. And I've been to the US before as well. So those are my trips. That's how far I've traveled. And yes, there's something that they say in Nakan, one of the Ghanaian languages, Tukwai like travel and see. It really, really does have an impact on your outlook and even how you empathize or see things. So that's me in a nutshell. Zipporah, what about you?
Okay, hello guys. My name is Barbara Zipporah. I am a communication specialist and I'm also an avid traveler. For the past 11 years, I've been to 11 countries. Even though I did not take them
One
one at a
thing.
time, 11 years, 11 countries. I've been to Burkina Faso as well and Nigeria. Those were the first two countries I ever visited. And I think you should count them.
I should count them.
I think we
No,
should count Africa.
for me, I just crossed the border, like hi, I'm Burkina, hi, then bye. That's not.
Oh, but city.
I didn't even have a passport stamp or anything. It was really like, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe I should. I'll count that to make it 8. Please continue.
And I've also been to, so Europe is my most traveled continent. I've been to, I think, 8 countries in Europe.
Oh wow, can you
Um,
list them?
yes, so the Europe and the UK. So I've been to the UK, England, and Scotland. I have
Yes.
been to Italy. I have been to Netherlands. I have been to Hungary, Germany, and Switzerland. I think that's it.
Nice.
Yes. So in the US, I've been to a couple states in the US. So
Nice.
that's a bit of travel history.
Have you been to any of Asian countries yet?
Not yet.
Not yet.
2020 was supposed to be my Asia year.
Oh, and there was COVID.
It
Oh dear.
was
Oh dear, oh
good.
dear. Nice, nice. Okay, so I want us to mention why this topic is important to us. Why is travel and its impact on our mental health and using those lessons to improve mental resilience and well-being important to us. So you go first, Sephora. Why is it important?
Okay. Yes, it's really important. And I think that it is interesting that we are looking at travel in this way because generally, when we think about travel, we only think about the positive sides. And yes, we're talking about mental well-being, not just mental health issues or
Mm-hmm.
illness. but I think we usually tend to focus on the positive aspect. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Travel has been the one way that have curated the most important relationships in my life.
Oh,
So I
nice.
have a circle of travel friends that I met in different countries, and we like to talk about travel often and travel related issues. So I just consider my life and how it would have been without those people.
Mm,
And so that's very important for us to talk about travel, um, things around travel, and then mental health as well.
mm.
So yes,
I think it's important for me because I think those two countries that I worked in really, really like it shaped me. It really changed my thinking. It reminds me of when I started working first in the corporate world. Like a lot just shifted for me. And even starting working in the corporate world, I
yeah.
lived in Kumasi, so I moved to Accra. So that in itself was its own journey. I mean,
But
in Kumasi, you could talk about you get into a trotro, the fees are gonna be like, hey mate, how much is it? Well, obviously it's in tree. Then the whole trotro will fight for you. But in Accra, like, hey mate, how much is it? Everyone's quiet. I'm like, oh my God, I'm alone. So um, I love the way, yes, there have been a few downsides, but I love the way it's made me empathize more and made me probably even proud of my own home country. You'd be surprised. I think we'll get into it some more. Yeah, so that's why it's important to me. Travel has shaped me. It's not been as much, but it has really shaped me. So let's talk about the biggest cultural difference and its impact on us. Sephora, you go first. Definitely.
so cultural differences in different countries. I think that's the number one thing that we always think about in
Mhm,
terms of different people and people in different places. And for me, the US was the first country that I stayed in
mhm,
for up to months at a time. Before that, I had traveled just brief moments, a week, 2 weeks here.
mhm.
But in the US, when there, I stayed for about 6 months.
And you worked
And
there.
it was in, yes, I worked there as well.
Mm,
Yes. So in the process of gaining employment, there were interesting things that come up. Systemic racism,
mm,
especially. You would see a job opportunity and you know very well that you're fully qualified for this, but for some reason you're not getting calls back or you're not getting
yeah.
interviewed. Um, Actually, I think it's important to note here that I don't even want to term these things as a culture, even though technically it is a culture.
Mhm.
Uh, it's more of a dysfunction or a culture
Yeah,
dysfunction.
I agree.
So race, yes, it's always there. And as I said, in the US was the first time that I realized I was Black. Before
No.
that,
Sometimes
before
you
that, I
watch
was just
all
a
these
girl.
movies and feel like, yeah, I'm black, they're white. But when you go there, you're like, oh my goodness, like I cannot change this. It's not my fault. And
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with me or you, but why is it a problem?
yes, yes. That becomes very glaring. And I don't even think this example makes sense, but you realize there are people who are even 5 shades lighter than you, but they are still considered Black. So the question becomes, what exactly
It's white.
does the world, yes, from us? So that's racism. But some other culture shocks I had was the level of freedom that teenagers have in the US.
Okay.
Yes. So when I went, I was 23,
Mm-hmm.
and a 23-year-old, yes, you are 23, but I was still living at home, but I was still considered as a young adolescent child.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
went to um my aunties the first time for
Mm-hmm.
about 2 months before this job, and they had teenage children who
Oh, okay.
uh yes, let's say they already at 16, they already have a driver's license. they have a car. It's a very common practice
Mm-hmm.
in the someone turns 16, their parents buys them a car if the parents can afford it. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the case. They have romantic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Teenagers have relationships. So that made me think, oh, at 23, I was not even allowed to have a boyfriend.
I can imagine. Let me even jump on that. I think some of those things are quite religious in nature when it comes to Ghana. But then what, and I'll jump in with some of my experiences as well. What shocked me when I was in the UK was I had to reevaluate what Christianity was. Obviously, luckily I joined a church that wasn't very um pro sexual freedom as much. So that was easy for me because in Ghana we aren't like that either. But I mean in Ghana, for the circles that I was in, unless you're really, really orthodox like Catholic or Anglican, for the circles I was in, Christians don't drink alcohol. But I could go for like a church function, they're serving wine, and who wants a beer? I'm like, and suddenly some things just like a teenager can drive at 16 and then can have a boyfriend. And parents would ask about, oh, how's your boyfriend? Like not teasingly, like they're really serious. Yeah, those shocks were real shockers. I
Those were the
imagine.
main things. Wow. Okay. We're living in a completely new era now. Yes. What about you?
For me, aside what I just mentioned, one of the things that really got to me, I think, was my South Africa. So first of all, my Kenya trip was very short. So that was one of my first African countries I'd been to. I'd been to the UK and US briefly before that as a younger child. Well, as a younger person, not a child. But when I went to Kenya, I was surprised that I was in a place where I was surrounded by black people and they didn't eat pepper. Like, how can you not eat? Where's the pepper? Like, I'll go for every meal and I couldn't really swallow.
I'm now. I'm having my
I will be shocked.
thoughts.
Like, wait, I thought
Oh,
pepper was a black people thing. And then I go to Kenya and yeah, they have good meat and all, but so I remember in the hotel, one of the locals will ask for, they kept saying peri peri, like when they say cayenne, then they'll bring the proper, now sprinkle on the food, and suddenly I felt human again. So I remember when I was traveling to SA, took a shaker of make some powdered pepper, powdered cayenne pepper with me because I didn't know how I was going to survive. But then when I got there, I'm like, you know what? If I go home and I knew I would go back home, I would eat the food out. So I don't experience the food in all its fullness. So that was the other shock. Black people in South Africa weren't also pepper rich. It was the Indians. Like, what? Like, that whole thing shocked me. No, it really threw me off.
yes.
I think the biggest thing in me, South Africa, was the classism and how I would go into a shop and the supervisor was either white or Indian, and all the waiters, all the attendants were black. And it really made me like understand apartheid a bit more than I had just seen. For us growing up in Ghana, it was a Sarafina thing and the dogs. And I mean, if you weren't traumatized by it, you sort of thought you felt all South Africans dance like this all the time. But it really, really hit me. And I went in between two xenophobic attacks. So I realized that even if you were black, it doesn't mean every black person in South Africa liked you. And yeah, I think that really hit me and how they didn't even see themselves, the blacks in South Africa that I met, most of them didn't really see themselves as part of Africa. And it came strongly from the lower classes. Maybe they met you in an elevator or they're like, are you from Africa? I'm like, where are we? Where? So that really,
Wow.
really, really, really had an impact on me because it was real. I had a friend who was called a freedom child because she was born after I think 80 something, 90 something. Like, what? How is that even a term? Um, we didn't have apartheid, but we could see the advancement of the black race in certain areas, whereas they had advancement technology and in the economy and stuff like that. So Yeah, I think that really, but the racism was hard for me to deal with. I think it's always a little hard. And at a point, I had to really stop myself from being like the angry Black woman because it was in your face unapologetically. Like some, and I don't know which one was worse, those who were trying to be nice about it or those who weren't. And then there were people who were genuinely like oblivious. Like I had I had a pastor's wife ask me, like, yeah, and a Black Jesus, like, Madam, don't Black stop. What are you saying? So yeah, I think there were a lot of changes when it came to travel, especially when you had to live there and work there, or at least for me, for quite a while, it really shook me. Well, let me tell you something funny. Something that really caught my eye when
Yeah.
I was maybe 13 and I went to the UK was that there was rubbish in certain parts of London and it was everywhere. And I'm like, there's also rubbish in different parts of Kumasi and Accra. Like we are
Yeah.
all human. Some people are clean,
Okay, so
some people will not be clean, and we'll all live like, yeah, that I think that was the thing. It just made me realize that we are kind of the same, but we're also quite different in a lot of ways. Yeah, that
oh,
was
that yes. I did not think about the pepper though, but I had that experience too. Where is the pepper? It's in the US, in the UK, where is so if you want spicy food, you have to go to either the Indian restaurant or the Chinese restaurant. So
yeah.
there's a lot of Asian restaurants
Mhm.
abroad
Yeah.
because we need that.
We need
And
that.
rice.
Thank you. Thank you to all the people who tried it because some of us wouldn't have survived. Um,
Yes.
Now, all these things that we mentioned helped us, um, what's the word? Develop some problem solving skills. How do you think some of these problem solving skills helped with you when it comes to mental adaptability and resilience in everyday life? If you think of today, what can you, maybe an example you can point to, in the different cultures, and how it's really helped you today when it comes to your mental well-being and having a good one.
Right. So I think that travel in itself is like this continuous journey of making the right decision because you have to even the process of acquiring a visa,
Mm,
but like you have to make a series of good decisions to land you into the trip you want to take. So I think that travel really helps with being an organized person, being adaptable because even the weather, for example, if you're leaving Ghana to a colder climate, you have to prepare for that. So and these skills that we learn, for example, adaptability, if you've learned to be adaptable in temperatures,
mm-hmm.
in the same way you become adaptable, you have the tendency to become more adaptable even in your mental well-being or
Yeah.
emotional well-being.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yes, it is a skill. So wherever you can use it always it can apply.
Like, let me stop you right here. Like what you said about being adaptable, and we'll go on a break soon, even with the cold. And you find out that no people, it was literally horrible weather, isn't it? Like it was a conversation starter, how bad the
Yeah,
weather. We would complain about it, but we would suit up. We would wear our woolies, we would wear our air muffs if it was really cold, the gloves. And it made me realize that sometimes, even though I may not like, say, a situation at work, and I could complain about it, I was still like adjust my body, it makes you grow up and go like, you have to change and you have to do
yeah.
what's best for you as well, even if you don't like it. I really love that point, honestly. I've never thought of it that well. I don't think I have thought about it that way before. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, the term transferable skills, especially in the
Yeah.
career is the same. If you're learning to be adaptable or organized because of a trip, you cannot be organized on a trip and suddenly become disorganized when you have to deal with a mental health or emotional issue. You
Mm.
transfer. that problem and make it work for you.
True, true. I like the way people being very clueless about Ghana, like very clueless, taught me that sometimes some people are just ignorant. So when somebody treats you a certain way, and I feel really bad that a colleague has said something, I stopped internalizing it. Stopped internalizing
Yes.
it. No, I reduced. Stop. I won't say stop internalizing less, but I started to just not internalize everything that I felt was against me because I realized that honestly, the person I'm speaking to now, their only picture of an African country, and for them, not even a country, it's Africa, is poor people starving and begging for a donation. So they cannot even believe that we have a motorway or we have Wi-Fi. And it used to irk me. Sometimes no, it still does, but I don't take it personally as much anymore because I realize that it's really your problem. And if I calm down, I'm able to reach those who really want to learn
Mm-hmm.
instead of those who just want to throw their idea and project it on you when they have no clue. So that really, really helped me. And I think thinking back on a few things that have happened in my life recently, I've been back in the country for quite a while, is people would always treat you from their standpoint. I remember going for a prayer meeting and somebody saying, and when the colonies rebelled, and my eyes, I know this is dramatic, but it's how I felt. I know I didn't, but I feel like my eyes flashed with anger. And I was like, we did not rebel, we took back our land. And in that moment, like, oh, surely, like it was, yeah, it was just a conversation. But then it also made me realize that the person who was speaking was elderly and she was there before 1957, before we gained independence. For us, I was born in quote, free and
Yeah.
independent, but she lived through that era. So yeah, it's helped. It's helped, and especially for me being very oral and vocal and emotional, and I love being that, honestly. No shame to that, and I'm really happy I am. It's helped because then I'm able to connect with people more. I'm able to give them a chance to actually prove that okay, they have a fixed mindset or they are
Yeah.
just curious and they don't know. That really helped me with travel. That helped a lot. Is there any
Good to
other
know.
thing that you feel that travel has helped you when you think of your well-being emotionally, mentally? Does anything come?
Yeah, I think yes. I also wanted to make a point on travel, broadening your perspectives. And again, that also cuts across. And so if, for example, I'm having a mental health challenge, um, I could just see that so many things are possible. So you don't have to
Mm,
have like a narrow vision on this particular issue. And also, I think
true.
people's lifestyles abroad can also inspire you, can inspire people to live their best lives, even through
Mm,
mental health, because you just see young people living their best lives, going for what they want. And for example, if you're having anxiety over career choices, you can just see the options. For example, I met a British lady
mm-hmm.
who came to Ghana often, and she started a fashion business from our African print.
Oh,
And
wow.
that has become
Oh, wow.
work in the UK. So she travels to Ghana often, get these fabrics, designs them here, and then it's like a social enterprise. And
Mm,
so something that like if you're having anxiety over your career, for example, which I've usually had that because uh, because of my many different interests, it's always
mm-hmm.
difficult and can't necessarily find examples locally.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I think broadening of perspectives is also something that I wanted to add to it.
Yeah, I want to jump on what you said about broadening perspectives. I think also I faced the thing where at a point I was gone all the way to a certain point in an interview, and even not the hiring manager, the person who was trying to get the hiring manager in, the hiring manager refused to speak to me. And there was nothing else I could point to than me being Black and probably woman as well. Um, but I think when you go through stuff like that and you do land a job, and for me, I landed a good one, and I enjoyed my job. Like honestly, when I think back, it was so different. Like I didn't have to fit in a certain mode. I could show up as me. Um, and sometimes people would even they will not say you are loud. They will go lazy and go like, okay, you are Black from Africa. Not in a bad way, but just because they can't and you were like forgiven, Um, although yeah, there were downsides of that. But when you experience what is possible now, even jobs, I realized I had become more particular with jobs when I came back. I was willing, I knew things were possible because if I'd gone to a country and I searched for so long, I searched months before I got a job, then anything really is possible. Another thing that really, really, really shook me was being appreciative of who I was and where I came from. I went to South Africa in between two xenophobic attacks. And I think Fees Must Fall was there. Fees Must Fall. Bring Back Our Girls was happening in Nigeria at the time, I think. But there were other things that were happening. And it made me appreciate why sometimes people could be so violent. And it's not as violent in Ghana because imagine during apartheid, you really wanted to have your voice heard and you couldn't. You wrote all your letters, you spoke all your English. But if you burnt a building, they would probably send their dogs and maybe change something because everybody wanted peace. So it didn't excuse behavior for me. It just helped me understand others more. And
I
then
get
when we were in Brexit and I would follow some of the parliamentary discussions, I'm like, honestly, we complain about MPs too much. Like, honestly, I look like this is the whole British Parliament. This is what, if anything,
yes,
sort of like the foundation of our government and how we run things because of the colonial era. But look at this. And suddenly I really became very proud to be Ghanaian at that time. So it was amazing also
yeah,
seeing stuff like Theresa May went through as a female prime minister, and I think she stepped down whilst I was still there. So it really, really shook me that some things are universal, and yet some things are not. But sometimes you don't you you acceptance doesn't always mean approval. I think I learned that a lot in travel. That you can accept something, but it doesn't necessarily mean approval. So we will jump on a break and come back. This is getting interesting. And talk about how travel has impacted our mental well-being, which is health, ill health, good health altogether. So talk to you soon.
okay.
So hi, welcome back everyone. Barbara Sipora and I are talking about the impact of travel on our mental well-being. And I really love to use the quote again to kind of share travel and see and how it's helped us navigate life and see things differently. So, Barbara, we were talking about some of the big cultural differences and how it changed how we do stuff and then how we think. So, yes, is there another thing you probably want to say regarding this particular question we are on right now about the big cultural differences and what it did for us?
Yes. So one main thing is that travel and through my interactions with people I may have met, friends or even strangers, it really normalized therapy for me.
Hmm.
Getting is sort of a taboo topic in Ghana. It's not even very common. For example, if I told my mom I was getting therapy, she might ask, and also, yeah, what is that? Well, because my mom actually has a degree in psychology,
Oh.
but maybe what is therapy? You're just going to tell somebody about your problems, and then what
Mhm.
would they do? That's the kind of feedback that will be expected from a Ghanaian. But
Hmm.
that being normalized allowed me to go through therapy, self-therapy. I think we talked about that on the
Mhm.
previous episode.
Yeah.
And then
Mm.
also getting actual therapy with a professional. And that also even affected my choice of a therapist because
Hmm.
I I needed that um global perspective. If
Okay.
I don't know the right term on my issues, because I've also had experiences where an attempt to have therapy with, let's say, a Ghanaian therapist became more of a religious discussion
Oh.
than professional discussion, if you get what
Hmm.
I mean.
It's like
So
suddenly you're
when
meeting
I
with a pastor and a counselor, not a
yeah,
professional therapist. I get that.
have you prayed about this? Yes. But I want to talk about actual steps
Mm-hmm.
that can
Mm-hmm.
this problem. And so yes, therapy became very normal for me through that. How about you?
I love what you said about therapy. I think for me, and those who know Calm Hearts, Calm Minds would know that I was exposed to mental health issues as a child. And luckily for us as a family, it brought us into contact with people who were professionals in the industry. And for me, it made me think wide and round, wide, can't remember the other term, but read widely about it. And that's another reason why this podcast exists, so that we can bring information to others. Because with information, there's a way you handle or treat or talk about some of these things. And people are struggling, and some may not even have, and a lot of the episodes we've had would say, may not even have a mental health disease or an illness, but just mental health strains in life are just everybody experiences it, and it gets too much. So I love what you said about normalizing therapy. For me, I think generally in Ghana, sickness is a taboo. Like, yeah, unless it's malaria. Like, if it's not malaria, even,
That's
hey, don't say you are sick. Like, some people can get really dramatic. You don't have a cold. Like right now, I'm sniffling a bit. You don't have a cold. Like, rebuke it. And I get the passion, and I personally believe in spiritual, like, divine healing. I have experienced it myself, so I will not deny that. But sometimes, as you said, yes, I've prayed, but I want to talk about it, and I want to talk about these steps to not make me feel so anxious, not make me feel this way, maybe even have a better conversation with my relative so we can get over this hurdle, to not just pray. It works, but sometimes you just want someone to talk with. And that's why I love what you said. And one of the things Calm Hearts, Calm Minds is working to do is actually create therapy funds for people. So you can put money in, and then, yeah, when you or someone else needs therapy, they can just draw out of that pot with professionals, not just people who would feel they can talk
yeah,
about it. But another thing that
great.
really hit me was normalizing illness. And as I said, in
Mm,
Ghana, illness is, it's like death. Toffee acquired, you have to precede it with some spiritual sprinkling. Like, if God, let God forbid, if we were to die, like, yeah, there's a law of nature as well. If For me, I'm Christian, so if Jesus doesn't come, we will die. And also maybe working with and a life insurance company didn't help with that. Maybe that blunt, but people are sensitive about it. But I went to and I was ill, and I was beating myself so much about the fact that I'm ill and I'm missing work, and my company has sponsored a trip to South Africa and now I'm ill. And someone said, "Oh, for sure, you are ill. Human beings get ill. It's okay." And I was like, yo, I
yeah,
I I'm not getting that. I'm not saying that sort of empathy doesn't exist in Ghana, but my experience, and probably the jobs I've had, yeah, you have to
yeah,
get ill once or twice. But if every 2, 3 months or twice a year, then suddenly people are looking at you with eyes, and making it either look like you don't have strong belief or you're lazy. And for me,
yes,
who are not me. So it was really painful living through that in Ghana. What surprised me in the UK was you get a common cold and you could call.
yeah,
And that what really shook me is that colds killed people. In Ghana, cold does not kill. And aside COVID,
yeah,
that really came, and maybe some whooping cough, tuberculosis, everybody gets a cold. You come to the office and sneeze it over everybody, So I realized that we are probably more resilient on health, maybe because of our weather, but it also made us a bit more insensitive. And therefore, it made people who actually felt ill struggle a lot more. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember sometimes my secondary school days, people who had asthma, people who had sickle cell, it was hard for them, not just physically you're struggling, but emotionally, people really, cause sickness is such a taboo. So I think that's one thing that helped me with traveling.
Yeah.
It didn't normalize just mental health issues or mental health strains and maybe speak with a counselor, speak with a therapist, but even common cold was big enough for you to take care of yourself and take care of others so you don't spread it. So yeah, that was one of the big things for me as well. I think there are many, many big things we can talk about, Barbara Zipporah. Like there are so many. I think when you see something, you remember something. I see something, you remember. Like it will keep coming. But I think like
Yeah.
zero. This is Calm Hearts, Calm Minds, and we do try to make mental health victories more relevant, more relatable, and more accessible to our society, including our society in Ghana. So I want you to think back a bit on how all this has really, really, really affected, like you before you traveled. Obviously, you've grown as well. There've been many years of travel, and there's something that just comes with age. But
Yeah.
before you traveled, worked in other places, when visiting, when touring, spent a week or spent 3 months or more, versus now that you've done all that, the organization, the visa, oh my goodness, that's a whole new level of organization. um what can you say to someone who is about to travel now about how you things change for you and you hope it changes for them too when they travel?
Yeah. What can I say? Um, I think that one lesson that cuts across my travel life and living in Ghana as well, is that whatever issues you don't deal with in your everyday life will not go away when you've traveled and come
No,
back.
no,
You're the same,
no.
even though travel helps you grow, even though we have lessons, we have skills we've learned, through the travel, you're still you. And so if you're someone who doesn't pay attention to your mental health whilst you live in Ghana or wherever you live,
Mm-hmm.
if you move to, for example, the UK for 6 months, that thing is moving with you.
Hmm.
And so it's very important to focus on any symptoms or any signs that you may have of any sort of strains or illnesses and tackle it. That's one thing I can mention.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
about you?
That is so true. I will jump on what you said as well. Like if you are impatient, you become more impatient. If you worry too much, you can worry. If in fact you worry even so much more. Trust me, I had problems with worrying and probably still struggle with it sometimes. So much more because now it's not just what you're used to. You have to deal with maybe the different culture, the different food, the different expectations, the fact that the train has left you, like it will compound. I've run a lot of platforms. It's not easy. It heals. So I agree with you on that. I think one of the things that I would like prepare for your life to change when you travel. And lit you can never be fully prepared, but when it comes, go easy on yourself and allow the change to ebb and flow of you. Um, at one point when it came to racism, I just wanted it to slide over me like water off a duck's back. Like, yeah, you've been none of my business. By the time it really got to me that I was snapping at almost everything. And that comes back to what you haven't dealt with. Because for me personally, I probably at that time hadn't dealt with being appropriate with how I felt. Because not everybody wants to hear how you feel in the moment. And also after that, now learning to address an issue without being overly dramatic. Not because you can't be dramatic, but because you don't get the effect you want. Example, if I wanted to say that what you said isn't very nice to say to a Ghanaian. If I said, what do you mean? Like, then nothing will change. It will just be me venting over nothing. And if I just let it slide, then every day that thing is said, or whatever it would be, it would really eat at me. So I think that's one of the things that really helped me with even now today. I realized that, and I've said it earlier, it wasn't me. Like it's not, I know it's not me. I've done my best, but maybe I can articulate better. But if after that, it's almost I could treat you like this, ignorant. Not all the white people I knew were ignorant. Some were very well learned and some were very empathetic too. And then also
Yes.
that you could never read a book by its cover. You can't go to a country not having been there before and think that you know it all. You don't. And maybe that helped me make change industries. I was in FMCG, I've gone into finances. So much I'm learning, but I'm like, I remember when I was 6 months into the UK, when I was 4 months into SA, and there were things I was still
Mhm.
learning. I can be kind to me, even though everybody's expecting you to know. I can be kind to
Mhm.
me. I think for me, the main thing has been empathy, not from, as I said, excusing wrong, but more from appreciating that everybody is different. And it really hits you when you travel, that people are
Mhm.
really, really different. That's one
That's
thing.
very
Yeah, travel. I still feel like we just scratched the surface on this topic. I won't
oh,
tell a lie. Uh,
always.
always, eh? Maybe we should come back for like part 2 or something. But yeah, thank
Maybe
you so much, Zipporah, for joining us again. I'm so honored to have you again and talk about this topic that's dear to me, and also have you for my first discussion. I've enjoyed
oh
it.
yes.
I normally have the questions like, oh yeah, then you speak, but thank you so much.
Yeah.
We're coming to a close. If there's one thing that you want anybody, everybody listening to this conversation that we've had about the impact of travel on improving and maintaining good mental well-being, what would it be for you?
Ooh. The last comment is always the toughest.
It's a tough, this summary comment by force. Like, why can't we just say bye?
I think when we travel, we leave a lot of things behind. For example, when I was in Scotland for 6 months recently, I only traveled with one suitcase and I lived in that suitcase for a month. Yes. Um, so what I'm trying to get at is that you can leave a lot of things behind when you travel, but you're always gonna go with yourself and your mind. So I think I'm repeating the previous point.
Hmm.
It's really important to have that depth with yourself as far as your mental health, well-being, emotional health is concerned, because people will always be different. Racism exists, good people exist, different
Yeah.
countries exist. But the way I see travel experiences now is, so far as I'm under a sky and wherever I am, the people over there also have red blood.
Yeah.
I, I belong to that place as much as they belong to that place, but not from a rude
Mm-hmm.
place, more from an open perspective and just
Mm.
knowing that I'm also in and I belong to this place. When we're in Ghana, we do see foreigners. Ghana has one of the best hospitality in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We always
Mm-hmm.
embrace travelers. So
Yeah.
if I happen to be where I don't feel fully embraced,
Mm-hmm.
I don't realize that. I just try and understand that people are different. They may have different perspectives. And
Yeah.
usually that will keep,
Yeah.
but yeah, you can travel with suitcases. And you can leave a lot of time,
A
but you're always
lot.
going to be able to
Yeah.
take care of.
I have
Yeah.
a joke. When I was moving to the UK, I moved with with a plan of not having a lot of things behind. So we sold a lot of things. So the fridge, so the car, like, and had planned to go with 2 suitcases, but then there was a special request to bring like some particular wache and some particular penguin tilapia. You know, processed food is allowed on a trip, right? So
Yeah.
then I'm here taking like half a suitcase out to put in my frozen wache. And when you say you leave a lot behind, you do. But then for me, one thing I want people to remember is that you go into a land of opportunity. Even if the land you go to doesn't feel like it doesn't give you what you want when you want.
Yes.
It's so much more. Your mind is so prone to learning quickly, appreciating different perspectives. You have the chance to see things that people have not seen before, or experience things in a way that maybe somebody who hasn't, because the people who went before me, South Africa, went at a certain time. I went at a certain time as well. Our experiences are different. And one of my mentors in that company that took me to South Africa said, you could even go and change your name and tell everybody to call you Bill. It's an opportunity to reinvent
Mm-hmm.
yourself if you want to. And for me, it's an opportunity to be grateful for where you come from, because I think people travel like, Ghana is not like this, and Ghana is not like that. But there are so many things that can help you
Yeah.
appreciate. Yeah, I mean, complain if you want to and vent, but there's also a lot more you can be thankful for. For me, was having my family 2 hours away instead of 6 hours, and how many dollars away. Um, and appreciating the thing of community. So I think for me, travel just is such a classroom. You don't even have to pay school, well, you have to pay the ticket and all, but after that, you don't have to pay for lessons, you get them. I think it's an opportunity to decide how your life is going to be better with them. And that has always been beautiful for me when you travel. It's such a new. I thought like when I was going to say, I've painted, done that essay, after we raised it, and then I'm like, oh no, and oh my goodness, it's so cold.
See,
Yeah, so really love that about travel. So Zipporah, thank you so much for this conversation. I hope someone listening has realized, if you didn't notice, there are lots of mental health victories that we talked about. I hope you realize that if you are to travel, if you're already in a trip, or if you've been there before, you can relate to what we are saying, that you would use those lessons, you use those milestones, those pains, those joys to um make better mental health choices for yourself and those around you. This is Calm Hearts, Calm Minds. Our aim is to make mental health victories more relatable. I hope you could relate to that today. Relevant and
yes.
accessible to our society. Thank you so much, Zipporah, for coming again. We can't wait to have you again, honestly. I can't wait.
Yes. Sure. I'll be back, guys. Look out for me. Thank you
Yes,
so
yes,
much.
yes.
I
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed the conversation.
I enjoyed the conversation with you too. Bye. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Calm Hearts, Calm Minds, and Innocence Heart podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you learned something new. We look forward to you joining the next episode. We can't wait to see you soon. Bye.